I'm so grateful to do, where's my, oh, thank you so much. Antonio, thank you, Antonio. I'm so grateful to be doing this because usually when I do this show, like I just did a run in Rochester and there are 6 shows, and after the show, there's this feeling that things are unsaid, like to experience that and then just walk off. So I'm just really grateful to have the opportunity to hear you guys and hear, how you're doing. And the thing is that my mission statement is to share my secrets, to give other people permission to share theirs, and to heal through the arts. And I'm really so excited because tonight, I have to read this. Tonight, we actually did a talk back on Zoom during the pandemic, but I never met them. And I'd like to introduce Molly England. Molly, yeah. Can we put the house lights up a little so I can see the audience? Oh, much better. I couldn't see anybody before. Okay. So Molly England earned her Master of Social Work from the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and she holds her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Molly's published in the Washington Post, Huffington Post, the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and more. She's certified in trauma-informed care through the University of Buffalo of Social Work. And Molly's passionate about empowering individuals, and I love her to death. Detective, oh, they need it. Detective Sergeant James P. Murphy, Suffolk County Police Department. He's the executive officer of the Human Trafficking Investigations Unit and the executive office of the Kidnap Team. He's a 32-year veteran with 10 years spent in investigative commands as a detective, the last 15 years as a detective supervisor, including the Narcotics Bureau, First Squad, Forest Squad, Criminal Intelligence. And he actually created the new Human Trafficking Investigations Unit. So I'd like to, and so we're gonna open it. Do you guys want to say something first, or you want to open it to questions, or?
I think we should open it to questions.
Okay.
But another round of applause for Mary's stellar performance.
I feel like I've known these people all my life. I just met them for the first time tonight. It's incredible. So anybody want anything? Anybody want to share?
Well, I just want to know, what do you guys do? Like, what are your jobs? How do you, what do your programs do? Just tell us about yourselves and what you do, because it's probably fascinating and amazing and wonderful.
All right, I'll start. So as the task force coordinator, I work with a multidisciplinary team of experts and individuals in different agencies, all related to human trafficking, and we're in Suffolk County, but we cross the border into Nassau County, and obviously occasionally we come into the city. But yeah, it's incredible. Our purpose and our mission is to prevent, support survivors, and help identify survivors, and also to proactively investigate and prosecute traffickers, as well as educate the community about human trafficking. So the co-chairs are Suffolk County Police Department and Empowerment Collaborative of Long Island and VIBES, Victims Information Bureau of Suffolk. So we have the victim service provider and the partnership with PD. And together that really makes a powerful dynamic, because we have to address this issue in a very holistic way and in a trauma-informed way, and so we work collaboratively. So that's a little bit about what we do. The task force was formed in 2018 around the time of the Human Trafficking Investigations Unit formation.
All right, so my story really starts in May of 2017.
He told me he was going to talk like a cop. I said, could you talk like a cop? He said, he's going to talk like a cop.
I'm trying
Go ahead,
to
talk
do
like
it.
a cop.
So May of 2017, things really changed for me. They gave me the Kidnap Team. And in Suffolk, the Kidnap Team oversaw any human trafficking in the county, which There were none. No investigations at all. In our history, we only had 2 convictions for sex trafficking, and there's so many reasons for it. Some commissioners believed that prostitution and sex trafficking was New York City, and if we looked into it, we would start bringing it out. Another reason was there's really no complaints made. It's behind closed doors. If there are no complaints, leave it alone. Because if we built a unit and started making arrests, well, then we'd show people there was a problem. But we don't want people to know there's a problem if they don't already know it. So in May of 2017, I talked to my lieutenant. I said, we don't even know if there's a problem. How are we getting along with this if we don't know what's going on? So I recruited 2 cops, and I said, do me a favor. I want you to start digging. I want you to start picking up some of these girls that are in motels and on the street. Ask them if they'll come in and sit with me. Because I wanted to ask them, what brings you to this life? Why are you doing this? Do you want to do this? Do you need help? And we went on for about 4 months of doing this. Dozens and dozens of interviews. And the interviews were all the same. It was the same story over and over and over. We're not talking about the movie Taken. We're not talking about white vans kidnapping girls. We're talking about 95% of the girls we interviewed were born and raised in Suffolk County. So right there, it was our neighbors, our kids, and they were from every community in Suffolk. Whether it was on the North Shore, the South Shore, nice neighborhoods, poorer neighborhoods. They were black, they were white, they were Spanish. All the same story. Most of them, 85%, had been raped or molested before they were 12 in their own household at the hands of a father, a stepfather, a brother, or an uncle. Every one of them lacked self-esteem, lacked self-confidence. So I said to my lieutenant, I said, we're dealing with a whole segment of population that by the time they're 13, how are they going to deal with life? When a woman is raped once, she deals with that violence and that trauma for the rest of her life. That never goes away. Everybody understands that. So why are we allowing this to happen to a 12-year-old? Where I was interviewing girls and they're telling me that they were sexually molested between 8 and 11. They didn't tell me twice. They didn't tell me 3 times. They didn't tell me 5. They told me 3 years. I left that interview room thinking, oh my goodness. Was that 20 times? Was it 50 times? Was it 100 times? How is she even walking around? How do you deal with that trauma? They have no support at home. Their view of love is completely skewed. And what we found was that was what the pimps were looking for. And they're master manipulators. They're looking for these people that are I'm going to say broken inside, but they're not. They feel broken inside. They feel very low, and they don't feel good about themselves. And the pimp shows them a little bit of love, which they've never had before. And everybody in this room looks for the same thing. We look for attention and love. So do they. And this pimp shows it to them. And it just has to be a little bit. And they never want to lose that feeling. It's almost like heroin. You're always chasing that first feeling. That's what they always chase. No matter how bad that relationship gets, they remember that first day. And they always want that back. And they will do anything for them. And the same story over and over again. Oh, he said he loved me. Oh, he showered me with gifts. And after about a month of introducing me to drugs and crack and heroin, he said, I've spent like $10,000 on you. I want to keep doing this, but I don't have the funds. You know what? I have an idea. And as long as we're together, I'm okay with it. All you have to do is pleasure a few guys. And listen, when we're together, it's love. When you're with somebody else, it's business. And I'm okay with it. It's the only way we could stay together. And that's the recruitment. And sometimes it takes a month. Sometimes it takes 2 days. And that's what we were seeing after just a few months. I brought everything to our administration, and I was really nervous because I was about to tell them that we have a huge problem in our community, and I didn't know what their reaction was going to be. And the commissioner said to me, he goes, Jim, if we have one victim, that's one victim too many, go find them. And he gave us a permanent command in March, and it's one of the first dedicated units in New York State. This is all we do. I have 6 investigators and myself, and we go out and we try and find these victims. We made a goal, which is different than any unit in the police department. Our goal wasn't to make cases and arrests. Our goal was to identify victims in the life and be a part of their support system. We partnered with ECLI, some advocates, so when I make a promise, I could keep them. When we say I can get you into drug rehab, I can. When I can say we can get you a therapist, we can. And I prove that by calling ECLI, and 24/7, they meet me on the side of the road, in the car, and they start that relationship with this victim. And in turn, we end up making cases, but that's secondary to helping them. So it's been the most rewarding unit I've ever been involved in, but also the most heartbreaking and truly upsetting. We started permanently in March of 2018, and we've lost 29 of our girls that we've worked with, most of them to heroin overdoses. The problem with this plague that we have with the heroin is that they build up a tolerance, and they could do 15, 20 bags a day. And then we get them the help, and they get clean, and then they trip. And when they stumble, they can't do 15 bags. They can only do 1, but they try to 15, and we lose them that first day that they trip and fall. So heartbreaking is not an accurate word for it. It's devastating to put that much work into trying to show them a better path. My philosophy in life is that we're here to influence others and do it in a positive way. And we have now 29 girls that don't have that opportunity. And now next year, when Sarah was supposed to meet somebody and do something well for them, she doesn't have that opportunity. So many people on this earth are missing that opportunity because we're losing our girls. So I think I went on too long.
Never.
So that's really that's my story. We try and get out to the community and let them know what's going on. I have 6 investigators, and we've identified and interviewed over 400 girls just in Suffolk County living in this lifestyle. Some want the help, some are not ready to get the help. You said something in this play towards the end when you said you realized that you had to make your daughter feel good about herself. That's the whole secret to this. All these girls that have low self-esteem and self-confidence, nobody's telling them that they're good, that they're pretty, and that's all you need is these manipulators to give them that one comment. We did a presentation, I think it's 3 weeks ago now. It was about an hour and a half, and it was to parents and kids. We were thrilled at how many dads came with their daughters. We go for about an hour and a half, and we brought a survivor with us, and she gets to tell her story. And the more presentations she comes with me, it gets more and more. Because in the beginning, she would say, "Hi, everybody. I'm a survivor. I was involved." And now it's, "I was raped when I was 9, and I was using drugs when I was 11." So it's just in your face. You have to listen. And at the end, a 16-year-old girl came up to us, and she thanked us for the presentation and told us that we hit the nail on the head. And I thought to myself, how does this 16-year-old know that we hit this nail on the head? And the next thing just shocked me to my core. She says, "I've been a victim since I was 12, and I didn't think I could come to the police because I'm Hispanic."
Wow.
I said, do you still feel that way? She goes, "Oh no, now I know I could come and sit with you." I said, "What about a therapist, a counselor? I have ECLI, I can hook you up with somebody." She said, "I think I need that." Her mom is crying, and she goes, "Sarge, you don't understand. I've been begging her to see a therapist for 2 years."
Wow.
And the next day she called ECLI and set up an appointment to speak to the advocates, and I told her, you have a few sessions with them and then come in and talk to me. We got to make you stronger before you go to college. You have to fix what's inside of you before that. So I thank you for
I wanna-
allowing us to come out.
Oh
This
my
is
God,
just
I know.
so awesome.
I just want to add that I remember when we did the talk back on Zoom, some lady said to me, well, you're from a broken home, so, and you know what, I'm not from a broken home. My parents were hardworking Irish Catholic people, and she kept me alive by sending me away. But the underlying symptom of all of this, of addiction, of domestic violence, of heroin, alcoholism, it's all the same thing, is that emotions are not normalized. And it's that emotions are our roadmap to life. It tells me what I care about, but it's not normal. So I didn't get what I needed at home. It wasn't because I was raped or whatever. It was just because I didn't get what I needed, so I took care of myself and I left. And eventually, you know, but that's a big point for me, that it's, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it because they think it's a reflection on the parents, and it really isn't. I think it's about a change, and I think the world is changing for the better and talking about issues and just, you know, realizing the importance of talking about feelings and secret telling and being humans. Because it's what it's really about. I mean, if you took everything and threw it on the floor together, all our secrets, they're all the same. We're humans. And that's the beauty of this whole process for me.
Yeah, now I mentioned 85% had that background. We still have another 15% that come from,
What?
you know,
What?
normal families. But what you brought up, interestingly enough, when you were in school, is the bullying.
Oh,
They
yeah.
bullied
Big
you,
time.
and they're cowards, and they want to bring you down to their level, but that's going on all over the place. And you took that bullying to heart and said, okay, well, you know what, if you think I'm pregnant, well, I'll go get pregnant.
Screw you.
You know, and that's a normal 12, 13, 14-year-old
Right.
reaction. So we get into schools. We try and talk about the bullying. We try and talk about self-esteem and self-confidence. And we try and explain what the bullies are doing. You know, the bullies are making fun of you because you're smart. Well, because they're afraid of you.
Yeah.
Because they want to bring you down to their level. Don't allow them to do that. And we're hoping to make that point to the bullies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're trying to talk about self-esteem and self-confidence, we're not just talking about the victims. We're talking about the pimps and the manipulators. You have to have a very low self-esteem to punch a 16-year-old girl a few times to get her to do what you want. I mean, so their lives at 8, 9, 10, and 11 were problems. And a lot of them that are beating the girls watched their dad beat
Do
their
the same
moms.
thing.
So we have to try and break that cycle, which it sounds like you did with your daughter. You broke that cycle and tried to show her
I hit
the
bottom.
love that she needed.
Are there any other questions? Patsy.
Hi, my name's Patsy. Thank you so much for Mary. Amazing. Thank you, and thank you so much for coming here and sharing, you know, what you guys do. And I'm so glad that you brought up the point about the pimp, right? So I have like 100 questions, but I'm not going to ask 100. So you were talking about how, you know, the pimp, right, the bully, they, you know, it stems from there. Do you guys go to the pimps themselves, and do you try to rehabilitate them? Do you try to say to them, like, I know what's going on? And then with the girl, I just want to step two, like with the girl, do you bring them back to their home, right, to where they're living? Do their parents know what's going on? And then if the parents don't know what's going on, you know, what happens from there?
That's great questions. By the time I get to the pimp,
Yeah.
we really don't have the ability to go back and say, how were you when you were 9 and 10?
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, most of my pimps
Right.
are extremely violent.
Right.
They're gun guys, and we have them for, I just convicted one 18 months ago. He got 25 years in jail,
Okay.
20 years parole after that. These are really dangerous people at this time.
So you're
We're trying to get into the schools and talk to the 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds. By the time they're 19 and they're beating these girls, we had 3 girls that we rescued out of a van. They hadn't eaten in 3 days. There's no talking to that pimp about that torture. I think we're way beyond that. He has been failed by his family, by the school, by the community. By the time they get to me, I'm not helping that. So we recognize that. We're trying for a younger generation to try and save them. For the girls, most of the follow-up with the girls are done through ECLI
Molly, yeah.
and Molly. So,
So
if you
you-
want to talk about the advocates.
Yeah, so part of what Empowerment Collaborative of Long Island and Vibes, who recently merged, does is address root causes of trauma and deal with the issues that the survivors who we work with are facing as from a holistic standpoint. So really understanding that that one person who may be presenting to us or may be brought to services may have a family or may have a support network, and how can we empower them too. So really we look at it from a very holistic standpoint to involve everybody who is part of that safety network and build up the confidence and the self-esteem of that individual through counseling or through literally whatever it is that they present to need. So listening to them and asking what they need, and if it's to help reconcile a relationship with a family member, then that's where we'll start. If it's finding food that day, then that's where we'll start. It's really like comes from that person. So it's a very relationship-based and empowerment-centered approach from the survivor's needs. And as far as the preventative work, yeah, I think a lot of that can help prevent future traffickers from becoming traffickers. And I just want to make a point that traffickers can be women, they can be men, and survivors can be male and can be female. So as well as the fact that there's also labor trafficking, which we're not talking about today so much because of Mary's story being focused mostly on sex trafficking, but definitely please do your part to learn more and to educate yourself, and then to share that knowledge and that information with someone who you meet tonight at a restaurant or someone who you interact with in your social circles, because I think there's a lot that each one of you can do to help educate the community. But we don't look at it as one issue, one singular issue with one singular person. We look at it from a holistic standpoint, and we really listen to what the needs of that person are, and then start from there. And then eventually it branches out. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but really the point is that we want to build up communities. We want to get to the root causes of issues and empower individuals to then have a lasting effect on the community. And so that comes with like economic empowerment, educational empowerment, like you name it. So it really comes from the individual.
So I'd like to follow up on your point. We have one of our victims is in jail right now. So we went out to speak with her, and she gave us some of her concerns. One of them was, yeah, I'm clean right now, but when I get out, I don't know if I could stay clean. I also don't know what kind of job I can get. And she's got 2 kids at home. She says, I have to be able to start having a relationship with my husband again. So we got the jail personnel together along with ECLI and ourselves, and we came up with a game plan for her. We got her into drug rehab in jail. We're getting her trained to get into a profession when she gets out. We also met with her husband and started him on parenting classes and trying to get him to understand what she was going through as a drug addict like NA. So now we're hoping when she's ready to come out in April that there's going to be a strong support system at home. She's getting parenting classes too in the jail. So we're hoping she's stronger, and the husband is waiting for her with open arms to come out. So it's really the task force brings us all together to be able to solve some of these issues one person at a time. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gina, and I thank every single one of you for what you do. And I worked at Bellevue for a short time, and part of the orientation was identifying victims of sex trafficking. And I think the more awareness that's in the community, the numbers are astounding. And I don't think that there's enough attention being paid to it. So thank you for what you do and trying to bring communities together.
Thank you.
Aw.
We've done some talks with Northwell and some emergency room nurses, to try and bring that awareness, to look for the signs. We've gotten a few phone calls, so we know some of it's working, but it's just a constant battle to get it out there and understanding.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that we're trying to get out is the word prostitute. And I'm sure everybody had something in their head. Well, think about what we're saying. They're not out there, hey, you know what? I think when I'm 17, I'm going to work as a prostitute, maybe try some heroin
Right,
and
yeah,
some lewd.
yeah.
That's not the case. They're being forced, they're being coerced, they're being manipulated. I want you to think about what was their background before they even got into that. And if we do that, you're going to be less judgmental. If you're less judgmental, you're a little more empathetic. If you're a little more empathetic, you're a little more patient. And I think if we all do that,
Right.
then we look at them differently, we treat them differently,
Stigma.
and maybe help
Stigma.
them.
We
Yes,
destigmatize.
take the stigma away.
Mhm.
So that's one of the goals that we do when we're out
And it's the
talking.
goal of the show, too, to destigmatize.
I just sort of want to follow up on one of the first things that you said was that these girls are already predisposed to be picked up by pimps because they've been molested at home by fathers, uncles, brothers, blah, blah, blah. So how those things are all hidden. All of that is like, and then even if a girl at 11 or 12 says, first of all, she's not going to say my daddy molested me for the last, like how does that get?
Okay, it's not hidden. That's the thing. It can be seen. We have to be aware of it.
Right.
I spoke to one of my girls, and you're right. I always say girls. It's girls and boys, and it's just easier for me to say girls. So I met with one of my girls, and I brought her to a school district. And I wanted her to tell the counselors what it was like for her in school, so maybe they can recognize it in somebody in their district. And one of the things that she said was that she was 13, she was already in the life, and she's still going to school. She didn't have any friends. She sat by herself in the lunchroom, and her hygiene was so bad, she couldn't stand the smell. I immediately thought that was depression. So I said to her, T, is that because you were depressed? She goes, no, Sarge. I didn't want me to be attractive to the men that were paying to have sex with me. She said that it was so bad that she couldn't stand it. And every morning before she went to school, she would pray that one teacher or one counselor would take her aside and ask her one thing.
Wow.
Are you okay? Not one teacher, not one guidance. How is that possible? Now, I'm not blaming the school district,
No.
but I'm blaming awareness.
But that starts with everybody. It starts with me. It starts with everybody.
Yes.
In Mary's story, there's a point where Mary talks about the counselor and being able to reach out to her.
Yeah.
And the situation that Sarge is describing, like there was all of these different people who maybe didn't realize their power in being that one safe person, that one individual felt vulnerable enough and confident enough to open up to. And that's all it takes is one person. And then through the task force, because we're a collaboration, that we don't want the onus to be on that one person to solve the problem, to provide all of the support to that one individual. So together we come together and we provide the wraparound services. Everybody has their strengths, and hopefully then meet the needs of that child through a collaboration. And that's what it takes. And I just think it was really poignant in your story, Mary, in your experience of being able to turn to that one safe person. There wasn't any other indication in your life story of feeling safe and heard until that moment. And so at ECLI...
She was nice to me.
Right. That's all it took.
She was nice to me.
Hashtag be nice.
Yeah.
She was nice.
That's the answer.
And that's what the traffickers already know.
It's true.
So,
But
Be nice.
I have a question. I think we all expect those victims to make these phone calls or to contact the people. So what if you're a third party or you suspect that something's happening with someone and you're making a phone call for someone that you maybe just know their first name or something?
Right.
How do you
It's a good
How
question.
do you follow up on that if you're a third party and you're not close to that person, or you might not even know all their information?
how can you come in and help that person?
Right. For me, in Suffolk, it's Crime Stoppers. And we tell everybody, you call Crime Stoppers, it's a tip.
Right.
So you're saying, I know a girl, Sarah, something doesn't seem right to me.
Right.
I know she lives at this address, I don't know her last name. That's it.
Wow.
It goes to Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers, if it has anything to do with a hint of sex trafficking, labor trafficking, human trafficking, it comes to my cell phone within minutes.
Wow.
And I assign every tip to my investigators. So we would go find Sarah, and we would talk to Sarah away from everybody else. And we have the same thing every time. We introduce ourselves, we let them know who we are, what we do, who we're associated with, what we can do for them, and are you interested in speaking with us? Almost 98, 99% of the time, they sit in the car and the chat goes on for hours because nobody has ever asked them, are you okay? It's a magical
It's
question.
amazing.
In your program, your lovely program, on the back
That Molly put together.
is a list of hotlines and resources.
Yeah.
I started in Kings County because we're in New York City, so they have a task force like ours, but in Kings County. And so there's information about them. Sergeant Murphy's Crime Stoppers number is on there, Nassau County. It's all there. And then there's national hotlines as well. I think that it's important for us not to be like hyper vigilant, but to be aware and to recognize like vulnerabilities in society and think about as a whole, how can we build up society and areas within our community that have extra needs and may need extra support, and build up each individual's confidence and self-esteem. Yeah, I had something else.
I mean, I feel like maybe nothing will, that maybe that person will end up dying or, so
God.
it's a hard call.
It is a hard call, but you don't have to cross any boundaries. Let me cross those.
Right.
Just call. And at least put somebody on a radar to try to see if they're okay. That's what we're trying to get across, is just be aware, let somebody know, and let them cross those boundaries, because that's my job.
I remembered what I was going to say. Also about the other, like thinking about the individuals who are impacted by this issue, human trafficking, as an other. I ask of you tonight to reflect on Mary's story and try to find moments within the story that you can relate, that resonate within your life, and just sit with that for a little bit, because I think that's really powerful to look at the survivors. And thank you to Mary for her vulnerability and her willingness to share her story, because so many of us don't have that bravery in us. Yet I know we can all connect to at least one part of that story. And that's the humanity in this story, and that's what brings us all together, and that's what hopefully will inspire each of you to do something about this issue.
Wow.
I have another question. So I know I know I can just ask questions all night. First of all, I know that there's a Giants Cowboys game, so thank you so much.
Oh, no.
That's very impressive.
It's right. It is. So you said you're from Suffolk County, right? So what about I'm everywhere, what about Westchester County and just how is there something that's gonna be, in the mix for everything?
That's a really good question.
So Western District of New York, Kings County, and Suffolk County all have the same task force, like the same federally funded task force. So we work collaboratively. New York State also has a task force for human trafficking. So the goal is to really not work in silos, work collaboratively. Last January, we did a joint event with the 3 task forces coming together. I think that historically things have been very siloed and very, based on jurisdictions. But we know that these boundaries are just, not real, and we have to communicate with our counterparts, and we are. So it is being addressed across New York State.
I started by saying that the administration in the police department has to be strong, because we are proactive, not reactive. Most of the police department is reactive. Somebody calls 911, there's a robbery, there's burglary. Mine, we're going out there and finding this. And we're proving that our model works. So it's going to take time for me to prove that to other administrations to take the step, do what we're doing, and build this model. I was going in August, but with the travel restrictions, I'm going to be going down to Puerto Rico because they want to build this model in
Wow.
Puerto Rico. We worked a case, and I said this isn't like Taken. We worked a case where they were actually being brought in from Brazil to Puerto Rico through Miami, up the eastern seaboard to Hauppauge. So we had worked on that. We locked up the traffickers, including somebody that worked in the federal government. Really nice case. They were so impressed. They want to build the model down there. I also have plans to go down to Alabama. I'm working in conjunction with the University of Alabama. Their statisticians are working on programs for us to be able to track people across the country that are involved in this. They love it so much that we're supposed to be going down there, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham. We're going to try and bring those local police departments together with the University of Alabama and show them the model we're doing here. So it takes time. We've been in this for a little over 3 years and we've proven it works. We just have to show that to other administrations and make them feel powerful enough to be able to answer the questions, because the questions come from the media, questions come from politicians. Wait a minute, you had no sex trafficking convictions and all of a sudden you locked up 61 people for trafficking over the last 3 years. What is going on in your community? Well, it didn't just pop up over the last 3 years. It's been going on for 30 years. Nobody wanted to look at it. So
Right.
you have to be strong enough to be able to fight back on that. So we're trying to teach other administrations to do that. So you said Westchester and other communities. We're trying to get out there and prove that this works.
And you're in Manhattan now.
I'm in Manhattan,
You're in Manhattan.
talking in the city. Yes,
Manhattan.
yes. I actually drove out here.
That's a start.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it is a
totally.
start. Absolutely. Did you have a question?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, about trans people.
Mhm.
So, you're speaking of girls a lot. Are
Uh-huh.
these trans as well?
Yes, I do. Most of the boys that we've had as victims are trans.
Because in the 90s, I lived near the meat market, and I used to be friends with trans people.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd ask them, being a prostitute was almost normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
it
at least
had
50% of trans
Yeah.
people at
It's
that time,
still
at least.
the
Yeah, that was my question.
how they're being manipulated and taken advantage of because they're reaching out to people that they think they can trust, because there are so many that they can't, and they take advantage of them and manipulate them.
Yeah, it's
Um,
even more insecurity.
yes.
They're stripped away because of their
Self-esteem.
differences.
Self-confidence. It all goes back to that, and they don't have the community structure for that protection and to build them up.
I just thought it might have changed a little, you know, how things have changed in the, that was my question, really.
No,
Because
in my
things don't
view,
change really, do they?
have we come? We're light years from 1995,
Right.
without a doubt. With community awareness and acceptance, we're light years away from where we should be. There's no question about it. And most of the trans that we're dealing with are being taken advantage of somebody that they trusted. That's what it comes down to. It's not, I haven't had where it's a stranger or somebody they just met. It's somebody that they built a relationship with, and on their end they thought it was a true trusting relationship, and it really was just manipulation. Yes.
Recently, we've been speaking in like churches and faith-based organizations, and we try to ask the audience, like as for parents, to really be accepting and understanding and listen to their children, because a lot of times with LGBTQ plus individuals, they will feel that they don't feel safe in the home, and then they will seek safety outside the home, which is, you know, to them in their perception in that time, a safer environment than in the home, based on the rejection that they feel from the home environment. So we really tried to ask parents to be truly accepting and truly listen to their children and provide support networks within that family unit, so that there's less likelihood that someone would be running away or be a homeless youth or be seeking safety and support from somebody who might be a trafficker and then might exploit them. So that's a message that we do try to get across. In New York City, there was the recent repeal of the Walking While Trans bill. So there's legislation that is showing progress as far as
What is that? Walking?
it's the walking. It was the I don't know the exact number, but it was
Right.
called the Walking While Trans bill, and it was repealed, which was to say that they would not be able to arrest individuals based on them being trans. Like,
Right, right.
So there is some legislative progress, but one message that we share when we speak to communities is about truly listening and accepting your children as they are. I think.
Wow.
Can I just add to that? If maybe not your children, but your family's children. You know, sometimes it's the aunt who rescues the child in a way, or has a positive, you know, or the cousin or a cousin, that, you know. So I think if we also spread that word of people in your family that might feel isolated, or relatives, or that maybe you or your influence could be that guiding light, like as with Mary's and Mary's show.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and that's literally what ECLI says about themselves as a not-for-profit, as a victim service provider, is that they are like the aunt, the loving, warm, accepting aunt that you may have never had. So being that person, or
the
literally being that
outsider.
aunt. Yeah.
Outside the family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes the mom and dad, they're too close to it, or they're not accepting, or what? Or they have blinders on, maybe.
Or they don't want to look at their part in it. A lot of
Yeah.
people are,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
right.
when it really isn't their fault. You know, parents give what they can only give what they got.
Right.
So it's a cycle.
Exactly, like in your story, Mary, like your mother, I think, had her own issues. Like she was limited
Yeah.
in what she could provide. So, yeah.
She grew up at a farm in Ireland with 10 kids, and half of them died. She went to school with no shoes and 5 miles, and she had to write to England to get a book about sex. Nobody would talk about it or tell her. It's just incredible. And she wasn't available, so.
Yeah, we talked about that in the earlier part of this talk about breaking
Right.
that generational trauma,
Right, exactly.
breaking the cycle, and like
And
you
this
have
will
done.
do it. This work will do it.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Mary. When did you forgive
Oh,
your
thank
mom?
God. Nobody wants to talk to me. I'm an expert.
When did you finally? Was it when she was dying, or when did you accept and forgive your mother, or just see her for who she was, maybe trying her best, the best she
It
knew
was a
how?
process in taking care of her. It's anybody that knows you live with somebody that has dementia. It's really hard. But she would come out with these gems. Like one day, out of nothing, she just said, "I'm sorry for that. That my biggest regret was that dress." And it was just little things that would come out. Like she'd say, "You're a cranky old." I'd say, "You're a cranky old woman." She'd say, "So are you." You know. I mean, just there was. I never. When I got sober, my mother was incapable of hugging me, and I taught my mother how to hug.
Oh, wow.
I taught her that in sobriety. When I was 45 days sober, she said, "You're just like your father." And I said, "Thank you." And it blew her away. She looked at me like, "What?" You know? So I nurtured my mother. And a lot of that is being sober and having my own tribe of people that love me. And so in turn, it blew her away, actually. But she was so affectionate by the time. Even her brother, like you'd go to his house, he'd go, but to hug him, it's like, so it was a process. And it's only because of my recovery, she recovered too, in a sense.
I just wanted to say something to Mary. I just really, now that you're talking about that, I was really wanting even more of that story, and think that it would be even a longer show, because that was.
I want to make it a longer show, so
Yeah,
if you
it
have
was very
ideas.
moving.
I appreciate
What you
it.
just said was moving, and
Okay.
it was moving. Because there's a revelation in that, and the other parts are very interesting, and I just like that broadened. I'd like to see more.
Okay,
about
thank
that.
you. That's really helpful to me. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share? We have time.
Mary, I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. But also just to ask you, you didn't really mention it, but I don't know, it wasn't there, but when you were going through that time where you were not quite sober, but you were starting to go into recovery and everything like that, and figuring out everything, but when your daughter was already born, did you, like, who did you call on for help with your daughter?
When I was, you mean when I was taking care of her, but I wasn't sober?
Right. And who was your support system? Were your parents?
I really didn't have one. My parents were in a lot of denial about my drinking. They're Irish. Everybody drinks. It's part of being Irish, you know. But it was also a process of me hitting bottom, and I'm grateful that I did. A lot of people don't. You know, leaving her alone and all that. That's a really good point, because it's really sad, you know, what this child endured. And it was only because when I looked at her that day, when she said that, you can't leave, you're all I have, and I looked at her and I said, you know what, it didn't occur to me, like, how could I do this to her? It didn't matter what happened to me, because being a drug addict, alcoholic, there's a part of me that always wanted to die, you know, and I'm gonna try this somebody else's way, and if it doesn't work, I'll just be a bag lady again and hopefully die as soon as possible. But just this one moment of clarity that, and the shame, oh my God, the shame. There's no shame like being an alcoholic mother, because it's an involuntary action to put that drink in your, it's impossible to just stop. It is impossible. And you love your kid and you want to be there for her, but you just can't. She did spend time with my mother and my sisters sometimes, but the time that she was really back with me was it was a couple of years, but I don't know if that answers that question. It's a horrible situation for a while, and I just and it's really, you couldn't have told me. If you told me what to do before I was ready, I would have told you, you know what, forget you. I would have laughed in your face.
I work in child protective services. So
Oh.
you know, I think, who are your supports? You know,
Really, the child, honestly, in a situation like that, the child should be taken away and let the parent bottom out.
But she never was.
Who? Taken away from me?
Right.
She was. I blacked out on a street corner once, and they were going to take her away, and then my mother took her, and I gave her away. That was a loving thing that I did. I didn't even know what was going on to give her away, although she was in a great situation with him. But really the thing is to take the child away and let the mother bottom out, or father, or whoever. Enabling people and allowing somebody seeing this kid be with a drunken mother and just enabling is the worst thing that you could do. That's my opinion. And I'm.
I'm Jeff.
Hi.
Yeah.
Just quickly, I'm Terry.
Hi, Terry.
Married, unbelievable job.
Just so
Thank
you
you.
know, this is probably our last question.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
Terry's a recovery coach too.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and thank you for both of what you do. It's just amazing. I just wanted to say that, you know, in the recovery field and all it's just so parallel to what you're dealing with on a regular basis. And, you know, like I said, a lot of the girls, guys, they're all addicted. And, but it's just this whole huge bubble of what starts out in childhood trauma.
Yep.
And, you know, and now that I, you know, because I am a peer counselor, because I have lived experience, I'm sober myself, but, you know, now to possibly, when we have women who come into our clinic, that may have gone through this, and you know, and it's going to bring more awareness. You know, I've just got more awareness, you know, listening to you guys about what I can now bring to my job. So I appreciate that.
That's great.
And thank you very much.
Thank you for coming into the game.
And it looks like it's a wrap.
Thanks so much.